Going. Welcome everyone to the Homeless Services Task Force for September. My name is Christian Horvath. I am your chair. I'd love to go around. We have a lot of new faces, including the incoming city manager of Torrance. Welcome. But I'd love to try to just do some introductions since there are a lot of new faces on here. So if you wouldn't mind activating your video, and then I will just call on you as I see you here, and then you can just do a quick introduction of yourself and who you are representing. So Grace, why don't we start with you?
Had to go and unmute myself. I'm Grace Farwell, and I am the Homeless Services Coordinator for the South Bay Cities Council of Government. So nice to see everybody.
Okay, Courtney.
Hi, everybody. Courtney Reed from PATH, People Assisting the Homeless, Associate Director for Spot 8.
All right, Jackie.
I'm Jackie Backrack, and I'm the Executive Director of the South Bay Cities Council of Governments. And we're delighted we have so much interest in this topic from the community and our cities.
All right, Lisa. And you're muted.
Hi, I'm Lisa Gray. I'm Beach Cities Coordinator. Hello.
Hi. George?
Hello, George Chen, Torrance City Councilman.
Anna?
Hi there, my name's Anna Papadakis. I'm with the Redondo Beach City Attorney's Office.
Hey, Jesse? All right, Jesse, I'm going to skip you and come back to you. Mr. Webb?
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Webb, and I'm the city attorney for the city of Redondo Beach.
All right, Lori.
Hi there, I'm Lori Jacobs, and I work with Grace Farwell at the South Bay City Council of Governments on the Homelessness Initiative.
Okay. Cherry.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cherry Bush. I am the Outreach Coordinator for the City of Inglewood.
Thank you. All right, Patrick.
Hi, I'm Patrick Diller. I'm the Director of Business Development for Palette.
And I'm Amy King. I'm the CEO and founder of Palette.
Wonderful. All right, Micah. Or I'm sorry, let's go Nancy first. Sorry.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I'm Nancy Wilcox. I'm the co-chair for the South Bay Coalition to End Homelessness.
Thank you. Micah?
Hi, everybody. My name is Micah Aziz. I'm just here to sort of like get a feel for what's going on. I represent Street Watch LA, just another advocacy group working to end homelessness in Los Angeles and monitoring police interactions with the homeless.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here. Zolma?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zulma Gent, and I am the Management Associate for the City of Torrance.
Thank you. Kimberly? You're muted, though. That might be the most often used phrase now in 2020.
Right. I am Kimberly Mack. I am the Housing and CDBG Programs Manager with the City of Hawthorne.
Thank you. Karen? You're muted as well.
Hi, this is Kiran Magiawala. I'm a resident of Hawthorne and a volunteer.
Thank you. George?
Hello, everyone. My name is George Gabriel from the City of Manhattan Beach. I'm the Senior Management Analyst there, as well as the city's Homelessness Liaison.
Thanks. And I apologize if I say your name wrong, but is it Aram or Aaron?
Hi, everyone. It's Aram. You got it right.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. Current Assistant City Manager, City of Torrance, incoming City Manager, effective October 1st, pending Council approval November 15th. So glad to be on this call. Thank you.
I don't know. George tells me you're a shoo-in, so I wouldn't worry. All right, Jesse.
So my name is Jesse Ramirez. I'm the Homeless Services Coordinator for the City of Hawthorne in collaboration with St. Margaret Center.
Okay. All right. So that's everybody who, sorry, I'm not calling on the people who didn't go make their video live because now my system got screwed up here. But if you wanna, I'll try to introduce other people later. All right. Thank you all for being here. So we have, let's see, the July 1st, 2020 meeting notes. They were made available as an attachment with a notification on today's meeting. If anybody had any comments or questions on those, now is the time. At any point during the meeting today, if you have a question or a comment you'd like to make, just click the raise hand icon and then I can call on you. So with that said, we're going to get to our first presenter today, and this is a pallet shelter overview. Pallet shelter, sorry. So as you all know, one of the purposes of this task force is to invite speakers that can come and share innovative programs that our South Bay cities may find interesting and useful. In the past, we've had presentations on different types of housing, including flyaway homes. That was at the Redondo Beach Library, if you remember last year. Today, we're pleased to provide information on an interim housing solution, Pallet. Amy King is the owner and CEO of Pallet. They're a Seattle-based social purpose company working to end homelessness with personal, dignified shelter communities designed and built by people with lived experience in homelessness. Pallet prevents and reduces homelessness with its high-quality prefabricated shelters and the invaluable people who build them. The company is second chance friendly, hiring and investing in people actively engaged in recovery and reintegration. Amy's dedication to second chance employment started when she and her husband Brady King started Square Peg Development in 2014, where they began hiring people exiting the criminal justice system. As Amy and her husband heard the stories and struggles of their employees, they became interested in easing their transition back into society. In 2016, they founded Weld Seattle, a nonprofit that removes barriers to employment, housing, supportive community for people actively engaged in reintegration. So Patrick and Amy, welcome, and I'm gonna hand it over to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christian. I just have to start by saying this is so fun for me because my husband is actually from the South Bay cities. He grew up in Manhattan Beach and Redondo, went to high school in Redondo. So this is special for me, and I used to live in Hawthorne too. So anyway, thank you for having us. As Christian mentioned, we are a social purpose corporation. And by that, we mean we focus primarily on people. And so we are a for-profit company, but we use the profits that we make to provide more jobs to more people in our community that are traditionally marginalized. So what's kind of different about us is 90% of our employees in this company that manufacture the shelters that we're going to show you are people that are exiting the criminal justice system, addiction recovery programs, and homelessness here in the city of Seattle and surrounding areas. So they come to us through a variety of methods and opportunities. We have strong relationships with DOC, with shelter programs here, with service providers, and they refer people to us for work. We give them a job, but then we also support them with wraparound services, housing opportunity, and things like that. So what we have found through our work programs is that giving people a three-pronged approach to recovery, by that I mean employment, stable housing, and a supportive community. Our programs have a less than 3% recidivism rate and a 9% relapse rate. So being able to provide those three things together has proven to be very successful for us. So we sent some information. I don't know if it was sent out to you guys or not, kind of about our company. So I'll let you look at that on your own time. But generally speaking, we started this company. We are first and foremost general contractors, and we build housing, both market rate and affordable product in and around the city of Seattle, also employing people from that same population in the construction trades. And along the way, as we talked to the people that worked for us and heard about their lived experiences with homelessness, what we heard was what was missing was stable shelter opportunity. And by that, I mean a place where people can know that they can go every night, that's their space, and they can keep their things during the day when they need to go get services or try to get a job. And so my husband actually came up with the idea of the shelters that you're going to see today. in response to that need, and felt like we needed to provide an interim solution. We know from experience how long it takes to build permanent housing. Permits can take a really long time and the process can be very costly. So our intention was to create something that was easy to set up, easy to use, and cost effective. So the units you're going to see are very inexpensive and can be set up literally anywhere, with the intent that we create an easy opportunity to shelter people in the interim while they're waiting for permanent housing. We do not consider this to be, nor should anyone else consider it to be, a substitute for permanent housing. This is a complement. This is a complementary opportunity to fill those gaps until people can get into permanent housing. One of the big benefits of our units that you're going to see, and Patrick will talk through, is they are panelized and they break down. So the benefit of that is, after someone has used them, if you no longer need them at a site, you can collapse them down, store them, and pull them out later for additional use. Or you can keep them in use in perpetuity, but they're really easy to clean and sterilize, so you can have multiple residents cycling through the same unit as people move on to permanent housing. So in general, that's who we are and what we do. I'm going to let Patrick go ahead and show you guys the shelters themselves and talk about some of the features, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Going to try to pop this out and flip my camera, if this works, so that I can show you our shelters. So you'll see the one behind me. We have two sizes of our shelters. So we have a 64 square foot shelter and a 100 square foot shelter. This one is our 100 square foot fully set up. I'll walk into that one in a minute and show you. And then if I can flip my camera here, there we go, perfect. So we're in our showroom here in Everett, Washington, and so we've got a couple of these shelters set up. This one intentionally has the front wall left off so you can easily see into the shelter, but it also gives you a view of what the panels, individual panels, look like. So as Amy mentioned, they're a panelized system. They come in essentially 7 panels, so it's a floor panel, 2 roof panels, and 4 side walls. Those get essentially flat packed onto a container, or onto a shipping pallet, excuse me, and then go into a truck and shipped. So to get 30 of these shelters down to LA, we can fit into 1 truck, and costs right around just less than $100 per shelter for shipping. So it's incredibly effective in terms of both transportation and cost. And I'll walk around a little bit, get a little bit closer. So the materials, they're all made entirely of aluminum framing and these FRP panels, which are fiberglass reinforced plastic. So that you have a skin on the inside and on the outside of the panel with a foam insulating core. So this allows for some pretty good insulation, very, very durable, and weather resistant. They are made out of the same materials that like an RV is made out of, which makes them really durable and will last over 10 years. The other nice thing about the materials used is they're 100% made of inorganic material. So they're mold, mildew, and rot resistant, as well as pest resistant. So people can bring in bed bugs or things like that, but they're not going to burrow into the units. And after they leave, you can easily, whether you want to hose them out or spray them with a sanitizer, they're very easily cleanable and sanitized in between uses, which is more, as you know, more important now than ever with COVID. This particular unit that you see here has 2 beds put into it. So the beds are an option. They can put, both shelters can put up to 4 beds. So they do stack in a bunk fashion. So I'll show you that in the other shelter. And they also have a custom fit mattress pad that is made to fit the bed, and the bed frames fold up against the wall for when not in use. Some of the other optional features that we have an electrical connection kit that you can see here. This allows you to hardwire in electricity to the unit, which will power heat. And then it will also power, this unit doesn't have it in it right now, but an air conditioner fits into this opening here. So you can have full climate control to the unit. It'll also go up to a hardwired smoke detector that can go into the unit as well as the light. We also include a fire extinguisher in all the units for safety as well. And then additionally for power, you have 2 GFCI protected outlets so that people can charge cell phones or run a small appliance or plug in a radio. And then another plug there that is for the electricity as well. All of our units are built on these, the structural floor here, which is a composite plastic honeycomb material. So it's really strong, but also lightweight on top of a structural steel frame. So the units can go anywhere. So we have communities on dirt, gravel, asphalt, concrete, baseball fields, parks, farms, just about anywhere that you can think of. As long as you have flat, relatively level ground, you can set these up anywhere. And all you need is to plug in the electricity. So with all the different options and features I showed you, the idea behind our shelters is that we can arrive on site and provide a full turnkey solution so that you can essentially, in some cases, be sheltering the people the same day that we show up, and that these can go up very quickly. So for example, we had a community in Maui that we were able to set up 24 shelters in about 4 hours using some members of the National Guard there for their homeless population as they were trying to thin their existing shelters to be more COVID compliant there. So they go up very, very quickly. Our teams put them up in about 20 minutes to an hour, depending on all of the options. Inside, additionally, up in the roof, you can see there is a roof ridge vent. So these little the little black knobs here get pushed, you push them up and it raises the ridge vent if you want to vent out the warm air that can get up there in the warmer climates or warmer times of the month. If it's a wet environment or you're getting storms, you can pull it back down to seal it off even better. But the roofs are fully waterproof. And then you see also some truss plates in here for additional roof strength. So the units are extremely strong. Will hold up to, or stand up to about 115 mile an hour winds, earthquake resistant, and not that you guys get much snow in your area, but they do have a high structural load on the top for snow load and other things as well. And then I'll flip over and give you a brief tour of our 100 square foot shelter. So you can see again with the front panel on here and the windows, looks very much like a small kind of tiny home. And then all of the units have a locking door. So it's these units have an RV latch, so you can lock them from both the inside and the outside so that the resident can feel comfortable that their items are safe. And then inside the unit, it's very much the same as the other unit. The main difference is 2 things. One, the wall panels are about 1.5 inches instead of 1/2 inch on the other unit. And then also the spacing between the beds. So in this particular unit, you have more than 6 feet. So if you want to put 2 people in here that don't know each other, you can do that and remain kind of COVID compliant for non-congregate shelter. And then if you have people who know each other or families, you can fit up to 4 a lot more comfortably in this unit. We have projects, for example, we have a project going in San Jose where it's going to be used for families. So they'll have up to 4 bunks in each of their shelters. Then you can see this particular unit, we've got the bunk feature here, so you can see what that arrangement looks like. And then as I flip it around, the bunks can also be flipped over and used as like a desk height or a table height as well. So that works for, we have some communities where people are students that live in them, and so they can use one side as a desk for studying and the other side as a bed. Or we have communities where the service providers will add a couple of shelters to be used as offices on site in those communities. Amy, did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Cool. All right, I guess that kind of sums up Palette and our shelters and what we're doing. We've got communities around California, some that are now public that are going into the city of LA, which we're really excited about. And then some more communities up our way, Hawaii, and we've got about 24 projects in the works across the country. So we're growing rapidly, and I'm excited to do more projects in your area, hopefully with some of you all.
Okay, well, we can open it up to questions. So anybody who has a question, please raise your hand on the Zoom participants flyout. And I'll start off with the first question. Do you find that you guys are primarily working with municipalities, or are you working with private entities and nonprofits? Who is typically ordering these units, and then are they going on public or private land?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say almost everything we have right now is on public land, minus we have a couple that are on faith-based organization land, so church properties, and then we have one or two that are on existing shelter properties where they're using our shelters to expand their current capacity on their property. The rest of them are all public property. In terms of purchaser, it really varies. So sometimes it is the nonprofit organization that is doing the purchasing and the setup of the shelter. Sometimes it's the city, and sometimes it's a partnership. So we have a couple where the city or the county have purchased the shelters for the service provider, and kind of any one of those combinations. And it usually involves some level of partnership between Pallet, the jurisdiction, whether it be the city or the county, and the service provider, all kind of working together.
And
Okay. Go ahead, Amy.
We have the opportunity to partner with, or we're working on opportunities to partner with corporate entities or private property owners that are willing to let local municipalities and or service providers use their land for sites like this because they're temporary. So for example, a private developer who has a vacant lot that's going to be developed into housing, but it's just sitting waiting for permits. That's a great opportunity for a pallet site for that 1 to 2 year period while they're waiting for their permit. So we're looking at some opportunities like that in LA right now, and we have opportunities like that in Seattle already.
Okay, and I saw that in the chat, David's put up the about document. It's a PDF that's about Pallet. Do you guys also have like any case study information that could be shared with people on the the meeting today that explains, gets a little bit more in the weeds in terms of pricing and how it works if they were willing and wanting to partner with you?
Yeah, definitely. We have some different case studies that I can post there in the chat once we're done taking questions here. In terms of pricing, I'll tell you, a lot of it comes down to the numbers and of the quantity of shelters and which options. But I can tell you that the shelters, the smaller one starts at $4,900 and goes up from there, and then the larger one starts at $7,000 and goes up from there. I know that most of our work down in LA area fully deployed, so shipped, taxes, our setup fees, everything all in for a smaller shelters run typically right around $7,600 per shelter. And then from there, all you have to do is do the electrical infrastructure and then bring on what other kind of complementary facilities are needed for the community.
Got it. Okay. I don't see any hands raised. So does anybody else have any other further questions? All right, I am not seeing anyone. Oh wait, Lori, go ahead.
Hi there, Christian. I appreciate the presentation. I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity in the future to actually have them constructed down here in LA, setting up a factory so that we wouldn't have the shipping costs and we can get jobs to some people who are homeless. Is there any thought of that in the future?
Absolutely. I'll take that one. That we would love to do that. As I mentioned before, my husband is from your area, and it's sort of a heart's desire for us to have a secondary plant there. As demand increases for the product, we definitely are going to need a second line, and we've already identified the LA area as a first choice for us to put that second production line. Right now, we don't have the demand to justify it, but in the time that we do have that demand, you guys are first on our list. And I have already started working with some of the representatives in Skid Row and various service providers around LA to look at optimal placement for that. Where could we put the plant to where transportation is easy and we could have the most impact as far as social impact jobs. So yes, that is on our radar and very much something we would like to do.
Great, thank you.
All right, I'll just check in one more time. Any other questions from everybody?
What are the units
Oh,
around?
go ahead, Wayne.
What are the units around basic model to fully loaded?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
What are the basic price range for the larger unit?
Yo, for the larger unit, yeah. So it starts at about 7,000 and goes up to roughly about 10,000 with everything in it, plus a couple of beds, mattresses, and that's fully shipped and set up.
So the pricing kind of depends on what you want to add to it. If you want to add electrical and how many beds you want, we let our customers really customize. You know, if you just want one bed, then that's going to be cheaper. We don't want to charge you for things you don't need. So the pricing adjusts depending on your needs.
Very reasonable.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Micah?
Hi. Yeah. Sorry if this is just coming from a place of ignorance on my part, but I was just curious. Zoning laws kind of vary from, you know, region to region. I was just curious, like, how does your company work in relation to that, in terms of like zoning and whatnot? I'm sure like things like tiny homes have different like zoning laws regarding like where they're allowed and whatnot. So like, do you work with the city governments on like where you place that? I'm sorry, I just wanted to know a little bit more about that side of it.
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up because it's an important point. Yes, we are very familiar with zoning laws and development requirements, land use, all of that stuff. We are happy to work with you or the purchasing agent and the city on what's needed to open one of our sites. I will say our units in California fall under the Appendix O temporary shelter sleeping cabins, emergency sleeping cabins. So the rules are a little bit different and more lenient there. So that's helpful. Also, our units, because they're technically not considered tiny homes on purpose, because we left the bathroom out on purpose, and I'm happy to talk about that if that's of interest. They're considered a temporary shelter, and so they are reimbursable with FEMA funds under FEMA rule as well, because it's a shelter and not housing. So that's something to keep in mind. There are FEMA funds available through the end of the year that we believe you can submit for reimbursement from FEMA when buying our shelters. So we're working on getting that in writing for you guys, and we don't have that yet. But yes, we will help with the zoning and all the land use.
So you brought it up. Let's just go there. So in terms of restrooms, is that typically in sites where you're operating these, are they just using porta potties? You know, what is the normal situation for a site that is using your shelters?
Yeah, it's really a mix. So we see people using porta potties, sometimes restroom trailers or shower trailers. We have a new product that's just coming out of prototyping right now for the 100 square foot that you see behind me, converted into 2 individual bathroom units with a shower, a toilet, and a sink. So those will be available in the very near future. But what we've seen to date is other congregate bathroom opportunities. There are 2 reasons for that. One, plumbing is very, very expensive, as some of you might already know. And so separating the plumbing from the sleeping units and running one single plumbing line and sewer line and tapping one time to a congregate bathroom is much cheaper. It's easier to clean, and it's more temporary in nature than having individual bathrooms in each unit. In addition to that, we intentionally left the bathrooms out of our units following feedback from our employees with lived experience in homelessness. Often our units are used as a first stop for people coming out of homelessness. And our employees told us, if you put my bathroom and my kitchen in my unit, I don't really have a reason to leave and engage with services or with community. You've provided everything I need inside my unit, and I'm more likely to just isolate inside of there. So we intentionally left those things out as a means to encourage the residents inside to engage with community and engage with services and to leave their unit regularly, which they're going to have to do when they need to use the restroom. But it is quite a bit more cost effective for the purchasing party as well to have singular bathrooms, like 1 or 2 locations with bathrooms, than to have a bathroom in every single one of our units. It's more expensive.
Great. I see Kieran's raising his hand. Go ahead.
Hi. I have a question in reference to whether you rent the units and also offer installation and decommissioning related assistance for the units.
Yeah, we definitely do the assembly and decommissioning if needed, and can do that. And we can also we can do it fully. We can send somebody if you have either want to use city departments or volunteer basis to build the units, we can send somebody down to help train and help through that process as well. And then in terms of moving them later, there's kind of two options. You can either collapse them down and relocate them or store them, or they can simply be picked up by a forklift and put on the back of a truck or moved around any way they need. So we have where we've moved and relocated shelters without even moving people's belongings out, because you can just pick them up and move them, which is a huge benefit to making them temporary and mobile. So you can move them. Say if you have a few churches that want to support, but maybe local ordinances only allow you to have them for so long, you can pick them up and move them between sites more effectively that way as well. And then to the bathroom point as well, if you're using them outside existing buildings, that also helps reduce cost, because people can use the services in those buildings as well, and you don't need to bring all that extra on-site infrastructure in.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, George.
Hello, thank you for that. So my question revolves around how temporary these structures are. The first question is, how long are these structures meant to last for? And then the second aspect to it is, how long does a typical homeless resident stay in that structure until they're eventually housed?
Yeah, great question. So the units themselves are designed to last 10 plus years. So again, you can sterilize and clean them between residents. So you can cycle multiple people through the same unit, which is a better return on investment for you or the purchasing party. But it's also safe and dignified for the the resident inside, in the sense that you can clean them. The non-organic material is also not, it's bed bug resistant. So bed bugs can't nest inside this material, which is really important. When you clean that unit out, the bed bugs go out with it, with the cleaning. So they won't nest and spread to the next person as long as you take all the soft goods out. So that's an important piece. But 10 plus years is the use life of our units. And they can be taken down and reassembled many, many, many times. What we've seen on sites from a service perspective is most residents will stay anywhere from a few weeks to the longest we've seen is 1 year. Most of our sites, the average time is like 90 to 120 days, which personally I think is a really nice kind of sweet spot. This is a stopping point for stabilization and engagement with services, and then move on to a permanent or a transitional or some other living situation that's more longer term.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to add also something that triggered a thought in my mind, and that some people think is a no-brainer, and others are really surprised by, and that's that we're able to, every one of our pallet shelter communities is 100% occupied with wait lists. And many of the occupants in these communities are people that the cities and the service providers have been trying for years to get off the streets and can't. And so the ability for somebody to have their own space, their own dignified place with a locking door, it actually helps you really move people off of the streets that otherwise would prefer to live in an encampment. And it's because these types of shelters bring the community that they would have in their encampment or wherever else they're currently sheltering on the streets. And so it is a really big game changer that we were seeing a lot of really positive data on before COVID even happened, and then now with the obvious need for non-congregate shelter. But we were able to prove this model pretty successfully prior to COVID even, and surprised a lot of people along the way that they might have vacant shelter beds somewhere else in their city, but then a service provider will use these and they're at 100% occupied. And it's like a lot of times people that otherwise wouldn't get off the streets.
Fantastic. All right, last call for questions. All right, thank you both so much. I really appreciate this. And if you will put any additional information into the chat area so that David and Grace can also get access to that, and we can send it out to everyone as well. I appreciate you both being here, and I look forward to you guys setting up shop down in this area as well.
Us too. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So we are going to now move on to our next presentation. And this is about the Redondo Beach Enhanced Response Pilot Program, which we have talked about here a handful of times over the past year. The program near and dear to my heart, and one that came together through collaboration with our city attorney, Mike Webb, his prosecutors, Anna Papadakis and Joy Abaqueen, our chief of police, and our RBPD, and then of course, you know, us working in collaboration with the COG as well, and county. So I'm going to introduce both Anna and Mike briefly with a bio for each of them, and then I'm going to let Anna, I think, take over. So Anastasia Papadakis has been a deputy city prosecutor for the last 5 years and has been with the Redondo Beach City Attorney's Office for 10 years. While working for the city, Anna was able to get her JD at Loyola Law School in their evening program. She has been a part of the Homeless Pilot Project team since its inception in late spring 2019, when City Attorney Webb started collaborating closely with the Redondo Beach Mayor and Council on this issue. Mike Webb is the city attorney for the city of Redondo Beach. He's one of 11 elected city attorneys in California, and he's currently serving his 4th term. He has previously served 4 terms as president of the Los Angeles County Prosecutors Association. Prior to being elected city attorney, he served for 18 years as the city prosecutor, deputy city prosecutor, and deputy district attorney. In his roles as city attorney and city prosecutor, Mr. Webb has shown a strong commitment to supporting the Redondo Beach Police Department's community-based policing philosophy. He served as legal advisor and raised funds for Operation Bull Market, which was awarded the League of California Cities Helen Putnam Award as the top public safety program in the state of California. He additionally helped coordinate and implement a comprehensive gang abatement strategy that included a nationally recognized and highly successful civil gang injunction program. After the tragic events of 9/11, Webb was extensively involved in developing a regional model for homeland security. He served as a member of the California Commission on Peace Officers, Standards and Training, Terrorism Training Advisory Committee, which identified and developed numerous terrorism-related training courses for California law enforcement. Webb has lectured on the topic of homeland security from a local perspective to police chiefs and sheriffs throughout California. He also teaches constitutional law for USC. Webb received his BA in political science and economics from UC Santa Barbara in 1984, and he received his JD from UC Hastings College of the Law in 1987. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Councilman Horvath. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have a PowerPoint prepared. Thank you so much for letting us address this group. You know, I do have to admit I'm a little nervous about the presentation, but I publicly speak every day in court, but this is somewhat a little different. So just bear with me a little bit if my nerves come through. So here we go. I'm gonna share our PowerPoint. Can everybody see that now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So I want to take us through how the Redondo Beach pilot program began our first year, which was this past year from 2019 through 2020, as well as what our next steps are for this coming year, to go through those 3 areas. So our enhanced response to homelessness pilot program was initially and is still designed to address 3 areas or 3 categories of people experiencing homelessness, which had a disproportionate impact on our local community. Those experiencing chronic mental illness, drug and alcohol addiction, and or habitual offenders who live on the street committing crimes of opportunity. Obviously, as most of you know, these 3 categories can collapse into one when dealing with any one given individual. So we were finding that oftentimes these individuals were resistant to services, unwilling or unable to accept services designed to help them in their circumstances. And what we initially wanted to address were this particular impact on our community. So we started officially on July 1st, 2019. one of our first initiatives was to meet with our local community members, whether or not they reached out to the city attorney's office directly or through our mayor and council, who then forwarded the messages to us. We had in-office meetings with our office staff, myself, Ms. Abakeen, Mr. Webb, and representatives from our police department in order to understand our community members' perspective. We identified some of our quote-unquote high-profile homeless individuals, and it turned out that a lot of the same issues and people were talked about in these meetings with our community members. So this identifiable handful of people, where it was based on their behavior, that really amplified the problem that our community was experiencing. So part of these initial meetings made it really clear that we needed to work very closely with the police department and with our service providers like Harbor Interfaith in particular, and PATH. So to take us through, one of the components of our pilot program is that we set up a homeless court. So the picture you're looking at is a picture from our Department 2 in the Torrance Courthouse. This picture was taken by our judge, Judge Gilbertson, and it shows Miss Lila Omura with Harbor Interfaith in the background with her hands up. We have our public defender on the left. In the middle, showing gratitude, is one of our participants in our homeless court program. This is his graduation day, meaning that he graduated from homeless court and his case was dismissed. And then on the right is myself, very pregnant me at the, then. And this was taken in June at our first homeless court date after our COVID break. So I want to definitely go through what our homeless court is and what it means, but bear in mind this photo because it is significant in the sense that it shows a group effort between the court, the Harbor Interfaith, the prosecutor, the public defender, and then most importantly, the individual who was experiencing homelessness and who's now currently housed. So the types of cases that we bring into, or we try to fit into our homeless court proceedings, are mostly quality of life crimes, such as being drunk in public, urinating in public, a lot of trespass cases, some petty thefts, non-violent resisting arrest charges. We try to get simple drug possession cases as well, if that works out. There is a separate court diversionary statute scheme for that. But like I said, if we can get drug possession cases involved, we would like to try to, because I believe what we do is definitely more effective in the sense that we try to provide the wraparound services that an individual will most likely need. Ineligible offenses would be crimes of violence, including domestic violence and things of that nature. This, again, like I said, this is a very collaborative effort between all the parties involved. Normally you think of court proceedings as adversarial, but this cannot be an adversarial process. We are in direct communication with the defendant's housing navigator, caseworkers, and the public defender who represents the individual. And the whole process is to make it easier for somebody to obtain services and eventually housing. So how it works is we try to address the underlying cause of the behavior, i.e. substance abuse, mental health issues, and as well as getting the individual housing ready, meaning getting them the necessary documents, addressing criminal history, and obviously the ultimate goal is permanent housing. So very early on, like I said, the program officially started in July of 2019. It was our wish to get Lila Omura with Harbor Interfaith involved in the process. So she started appearing in court with us in August of 2019. This was a great step because it allowed her to link up with new individuals who were in the court process but weren't necessarily in the CES, the coordinated entry system. They hadn't been really in touch with services before, or had, but there was no follow through. Lila had been working with some of these individuals before out on the street, but now that there were criminal cases involved, it required more oversight, and you know, these cases are usually involve people who have more of an acute issue, whether it's mental health or substance abuse. And what we do, essentially the structure is to baby step them through the process, meaning that between each court date, our judge will order very specific, very, what seems like small things, but amount to quite a larger, a lot more involved to get to housing. So what I mean is that if somebody doesn't have an ID, then they can't get their benefits. So between court dates, a judge will say, okay, you need to go to the DMV and get an ID. And then eventually when the ID is lost, then the judge will order the individual to go and get 2 IDs so that there's a backup one that their caseworker, case manager can hold on to. For another example of the court orders would be to go to the DPSS office and set up an income, set up benefits. This is important because then at the next court date, the judge can tell the person, okay, now that you've done that, go get a phone so that your caseworker can communicate with you and you guys can go to meetings and set things up. So with all of these little steps in place, the individual will hopefully at some point be quote unquote housing ready. These court orders by the judge also make the caseworker's job much easier. So when the housing navigator has the backing of the court and says, you know, the judge ordered you to do this, it really goes a long way with these individuals. And we are seeing the follow through between court dates. Of course, the other component to this is if the person needs alcohol treatment, detox, or just detox and then into residential treatment, that obviously has to be addressed concurrently, if not prior to all these other little steps. However, again, as most of you know, that requires setting up Medi-Cal and going through that entire process, which again, the court can get involved in and order. So we have a much higher percentage of court appearances with this program than is typical in the homeless population with respect to their criminal cases. In my experience, someone who's experiencing homelessness, they just don't come to court. Whether or not it's because paperwork gets lost, they don't care, mental illness, substance abuse, hazards of living without shelter, whatever the reason is. The thing that's encouraging is that we have a very high percentage of people that do come to court. For example, in June, we had 17 individuals total that were scheduled. This was the first court date post-COVID closures that we were trying to get our program back up and running. And we had 11 individuals actually appear. We had a 12th individual appear a week later because of word of mouth. One of the individuals who was in court was, told the other individual who was experiencing homelessness, hey, the court was talking about you, they issued a warrant, you better go take care of your case. And that got that person back into court, reconnected to services, set back up again. And so that's the kind of thing that's really encouraging to hear, that there's a draw to this process that is connecting with these individuals who are involved. In July, we had 9 total scheduled, and again, 7 appeared. In both June and July, we had graduations, and I'm using the term graduation because that's when we can officially declare that the person has been housed, they're stable, and we will dismiss their cases and terminate probations if they exist as well. And our last stat in March was actually highly encouraging. March was the last day we had our homeless court prior to the COVID impact on the courts. And we had 17 matters scheduled, and of those 17, 16 individuals appeared, which again is really unheard of in this population. We are, again, this really only works because we work so closely with the service providers, like individuals from Harbor Interfaith, Miss Lila Omura, who's a part of them, and we're hoping to incorporate PATH more this coming year, especially when we get more new individuals who need services and help with the process. So to get into our next steps, this is one of the prongs that we've been doing this last year. Another big component of the program was to staff our mental health court, which is the primary responsibility of my colleague, Ms. Joy Abakine. And really just like I said, I can't emphasize enough the importance of the collaboration between our office, the police department, and the service providers in order to really look at enforcement and trying to create effective methods for addressing repeat offenders who are in our area that are on all of our radar. So our next scheduled homeless court date is next week on Wednesday, September 9th. And what's interesting and exciting about this coming homeless court date is COVID has actually brought about a huge change in what we're trying to do with this coming year because of the challenge of getting people to court. Oftentimes the case manager, caseworker will need to transport the individual. Ms. Omura has had to assist in transportation throughout these court appearances. We're trying to reduce the number of people in court. And sometimes if we have, anything over 10 people in court is a health hazard for everyone there, as well as court staff. And so in order to address this issue, for the first time in history, we were able to try to find an off-site location, which ended up being outdoors at 200 North PCH, which is the police department annex area in the parking lot. And we have set up an outdoor court. It's an outdoor superior court. It will be considered Department 2's satellite court for our homeless court days. And this was something that was presented to our city council on August 4th, as well as 2 other prongs of our future plans with this program for this coming year, which included mental health services and the possibility of a crisis bridge housing component, which I can get into more in a little bit. And the council unanimously approved these endeavors. So, and this is just a rendering of what our outdoor court will look like. The possibility of this was really involved all areas of our county system, including the presiding judge of the Superior Court, pretty much every level of the sheriff's department was involved. Of course, Redondo Beach Police Department, Redondo Beach Public Works, Redondo Beach IT, just to get the Wi-Fi logistics straightened out, and our office. It has been a Herculean effort to try to bring this outdoor court to life and service our community, because ultimately it'll be easier for most, if not all, of the individuals to get to this Redondo location. And we're also trying to keep everyone as safe as we can, socially distanced and outdoors. So I know Mike Webb has jokingly said, you know, he'd never thought in a million years we'd have an outdoor court, but this is something that we're trying to, we're there, we've had it set up, we've gotten the approvals, and we are excited to get going with it next week. So this again was one of the transitions and one of the direction that we want to go in. And I think it's worth noting that this is also a great geographical change, because what we would like to do is we'll have court in the morning in Redondo. There is a scheduled meal service across the street at St. James every Wednesday. So on the mornings, on the days of our homeless court, we have we'll have court in the morning, and then the meal service at lunchtime. And then what we'd like to do after lunch on that same day is incorporate a mental health component with counseling, group therapy, and individual therapy with our homeless court participants, as well as with really anybody who's experiencing homelessness in Redondo that would need these types of services. So again, we all know that mental health is a huge component of this population, and that it often impedes the ability for the person to get housing ready. So from the beginning, we wanted to incorporate this service into our pilot program, and we are so thrilled because that wish that we had last year is becoming a reality this coming year. We've partnered with Clear Recovery Center, which is a local service provider in Redondo and Hermosa, and they've partnered with us for the mental health and substance abuse treatment as part of the care that they're willing to do. And they're giving us, you know, they have the background, they've been doing it for years. They have like I said, a recovery center locally. They have, they've just opened up a detox center as well. And last night, Redondo Beach City Council approved the MOU between our city and Clear Recovery for them to donate up to $5,000 per month of professional clinical services for mental health treatment to assist our homeless population. If we exceed that, which we likely will, we're fortunate enough to have that backup money from the COG. And then lastly, the direction that we, again, the third prong of what we are trying to accomplish this year is to create a space available or to rent beds or even a house to help people through before they get their permanent housing. As we all know, there are no shelters in Redondo Beach and very few in the South Bay in general. We're trying to locate housing in a nearby city, still within our SPA, in order to have an additional option for our individuals throughout the city, not just, again, people who are in homeless court, but for anybody experiencing homelessness in Redondo Beach, where we would be able to feasibly offer them a bed for the night. Ideally, we would like to couple this housing with after hours and weekend support from LCSWs who also can specialize in substance abuse. We're still working on this. This is something that we're hoping to accomplish soon. And again, we just throwing somebody in a bed may not be the most effective. We're trying to really understand the underlying issues, identify the individual's underlying problem, and give them the services they need to succeed into permanent housing. Excuse me. We want to pursue this because we are facing the known sunset of things like Project Room Key, and we have so many individuals currently housed in Project Room Key locations. We don't want them to have no place to go afterward. So back to our homeless court picture. This is really a full circle photo for myself, because this individual who graduated was a topic of some of our meetings early on with our community members. And he was discussed as a problem in the area, and he's very high profile, quote unquote, and he did have a low level nuisance type of charge. He started the court process back in, I believe it was September, October of 2019, and he dutifully came to each one of his court dates. He worked with Lilo Ramura continually, and by March of 2020, he ultimately accepted housing in a local city. It's tough because he'd been homeless for at least 15 years in the area, and he was resistant to help, but had identified, the court process and continuing the positive reinforcement and encouragement of his behavior really, I think, made a difference. And now he's a huge proponent of the program, and he helps Lila still, and he's permanently housed, but he still is seen in the city. He likes to come down to the city, and he helps Lila with other individuals experiencing homelessness, and to tell them, hey, get with the program and do what you have to do. His physical health has turned around because he's no longer sleeping on the street. He's an older gentleman, and really, this was a really rewarding experience for all those involved, including myself, because it's a wonderful thing to be able to dismiss someone's case because they're housed. And this is the whole point of the program, is to get somebody housed. So with that, if Mike Webb, if you have anything to add, or otherwise we can take questions at this time.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add other than, this truly is a model program that we're hoping that you can learn from our successes and our failures. We're hoping that as this individual who was Councilman Horvath heard a lot of complaints about during council meetings when people would show up and refer to him as Camo Mike, it was a big deal that we were able to get him housed. And now that he wants to stay with the homeless court program, we're looking at potential aftercare with the mental health component. We not only have the $60,000 of donated services, but we have an option to purchase $50,000 of worth of additional counseling. We won't ever know what they say to them, because it's although we're paying for it, there is privacy, and the public defenders would never allow it, and I don't blame them. However, Clear Recovery is going to seek to learn in the homeless community in the South Bay, and it may be very different elsewhere. What are the particular issues? What are the types of illnesses that they suffer? How do you distinguish if the primary issue is chronic mental illness or it's substance abuse? And they go together a lot. Sometimes one causes the other. You know, the substance abuse causes the chronic mental illness, or they could have been self-medicating for years. And so we're hoping we can learn from that in the aggregate. We won't ever know that, you know, defendant A is schizophrenic unless, you know, they volunteer it. But we'll know that, okay, with schizophrenia, we want to address this first, or it's more important to deal with the acute substance abuse. And so we're learning things every day we do it. Anna's correct. I actually wasn't joking. It may have been my idea, but I didn't think we'd ever get the county and everyone on board, the court system, the sheriffs, to agree to move a court to an outdoor parking lot. It's safer for everybody in the age of COVID, but we're going to start on next Wednesday, September 9th. And our next steps, we're already talking to psychiatrists to add that additional element of mental health care and urgent care who could provide, if prescribed by the psychiatrist and if appropriate and if consented to by the defendant, they could provide different medications. And it's not a system where you have to trust them. As you know, if people are mentally ill and they take their medication, they then think, okay, I'm not mentally ill, I don't need the medication often. And so we've had very good success with you know, some of the defendants in the past. And the final thing I'll say, we're very fortunate to have a forward-thinking police department and a generous community. The problem, though, was that the residents who were suffering the quality of life crimes were becoming very antagonistic to that because they blamed the faith-based services for bringing the homeless there. And often the police department, because the court system, people wouldn't show up to court. When they did, the court would package 6 cases for a minor sentence, which under our county jail, even before COVID, they get released. And it wasn't good for the defendants and it wasn't good for the residents. And oftentimes some patrol officers just wouldn't make arrests for things like defecation in public, things like that. Now they take everything seriously, but the goal is to get the person treated and get the person housed. And we've really reached a kind of a sweet spot, as Anna said. I love that picture because you can't take pictures in court without a judge's permission. And the judge took that picture. You know, she celebrated it. One of our biggest supporters of the program is the bailiff, who is kind of a gruff, no-nonsense guy. But he just raves about the program because he sees them from when they first come in and he deals with them as a potential safety threat to the end, where they've done a lot with their lives. So we're hoping you can learn from our successes, more so from our failures, because there will be some, and adopt this in each of your jurisdictions.
Thanks, Mike. I will just say, you know, it is, there's a lot of things we get to do while serving on council that make you proud, but this is definitely probably one of the 2 biggest things, you know, in the time I've been here, especially with, you know, focusing so much energy and effort on this issue over the past 5 years. And when I walked into Mike's office after what was a really uncomfortable and contentious council meeting in, I think, April of 2019, I said, can we meet tomorrow morning and brainstorm on stuff and talk about this? I don't even think we could have imagined that we would be able to help those 3 segments of the population that were in Anna's presentation the way we have been, and the creativeness that Mike and his team have been able to put together. You know, we didn't have money to pay for this. You know, we borrowed it out of our PERS, you know, fund, which is to help with PERS costs. And then, you know, I spent months dragging Mike and Chief Kaufman around to Janice Hahn's office and stuff, trying to find monies. And I'm grateful that this body and the COG board, you know, was willing to give us the innovation funds to do this for an additional year, because I truly believe that what we are doing here can be extrapolated out to other cities. I think it's, or even, you know, to the county level. I don't think this is rocket science, but I do want to point out, and this is one reason why I was trying, to get Measure H to expand what they allow to be covered under their program, because this is not technically an allowable Measure H funding mechanism right now. There is no mechanism for this. So that's why we fell into innovation funds. But clearly, this is something that is working, can work, and so I hope that each of you will try something in your own cities, and also that maybe we collectively petition the county to really rethink more creative strategies for helping those that are truly in need. So I'm going to open it up to questions, and I see George has got his hand raised. So George, go ahead.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Anna. That's a very informative presentation, and thank you, Mr. Webb, as well. And I heard, I was in the board meeting last week, and when we approved the funding for this, I was just interested in what I think Anna just sent the package. I want to go back just a few steps, because I feel like I'm still catching up with this whole issue. It's there's probably 3 questions I have, or 3 chunks of question. In terms of ordinances and code, you're talking about public defecation, public urination, or quality of life things. Were these things already in the code so that Redondo Beach PD would take action, as opposed to, oh, this guy's there, we got a phone call, we can't do anything? So that's just one. And then the second one was, now that PD went to the scene with this person, whoever it is, did the person get taken to, I guess, the station physically? I'm looking at the steps and the sequencing.
Okay, can I address those 2? And then, because I won't keep track of all 3, and they go together. So what we found was we didn't need any additional codes. We did need, the important part of it is the chief put an acting captain position, because we found that some of the younger officers didn't know. Like they would say, oh, we don't have a muni code for urinating in public. Well, you don't need one. It's a nuisance. It's in the penal code, and it's better to go with the penal code, because judges don't care as much about muni codes. The second thing is, we don't need an arrest. The problem with the homeless individuals who are, even before COVID, that you would ask your jailers, they're not going to be happy. Police officers are not going to be happy. They expose themselves to some. There are officers in about the South Bay who have come up with long-term illnesses. There's no point in arresting them, because they're going to be not held in custody when they get to court, because you have to have $50,000 or more for bail. So what we said is, okay, all we need, a citation is great, but just give us a police report. But ideally, just a citation, and then we'll file the case. And because what the service provider says is, I can ask them 20 times to and offer them services. The police officers can. Change is hard for all of us, and it's even harder if you're suffering from chronic mental illness or addiction. And so what it is now it's not just the service provider offering, it's, okay, well, Anna is either seeking punishment because you did commit a quality of life crime, but we really don't want to. We want to dismiss it if you'll take these steps. And so the goal is ultimately working together. So I don't think you need any new, I would assume you would not need any new codes. You would need definitely support from the top of the department. I think Lieutenant Whitman can speak to that, but Captain Naylor was the acting captain, and he literally would, if we get a complaint, we follow up on every complaint from a resident to a council person. and they saw this, and we saw someone out and didn't make an arrest, or I mean, didn't take a citation, just fill out an FI card or did nothing. Well, then Captain Naylor would follow and ask, okay, why is that the case? You know, we're not helping anybody here. So we don't want to see arrests, but if they're committing a crime, we'd like to see them in the system, because hopefully we can get them the help that will make their life better and stop the quality of life things. I hope I answered it. What's your third question?
We're on there because I'm just trying to follow. I'm just trying to follow the basic sequence. So an officer goes, encounters this homeless person doing quality of life, violating some penal code. He writes some kind of a citation. He gives it to this person, and then this person, I assume the citation says this person is supposed to show up in court on day X.
Right.
Give me an example, and then I'm trying to figure out.
So then in our office,
what next? Then?
So all in our office, and Anna can address this, but all cases involving homeless individuals goes to her. You know, we have 3 full-time prosecutors plus a separate quality of life prosecutor. Anna handles, it's like we did when I first came here more than 25 years ago. One of the first things they did is we did domestic violence, vertical prosecution. I wanted the same person. It was me back then handling it, so the victim wouldn't have to tell their story that's painful to multiple different deputy city prosecutors. We've now instituted that for homeless cases, because Anna can treat them and also can know what do they really need. You know, Anna can handle it. So she files a criminal case if it's warranted. If they show up, great, we put them in homeless court. If there's issue of a warrant, we have officers who know them. You know, Keith Turner's been dealing with them for years. And Keith will go, okay, you really need to go to court. You know, there's a warrant outstanding, and we'll give them multiple chances. Not then at that point, they'll make an arrest. And then in homeless court, we take more time. It's not just the normal, you know, even when Anna set it up originally, it was just a few hours at a time to give more time to each individual defendant. Do you want to speak to that, Anna?
Right. So the person eventually makes their way into court, whether or not they're coming in on their citation date or they're coming in on a warrant because they've passed their court date. They're given the option of, okay, you can either accept services and eventually we'll dismiss all this, or if you don't, then we'll go through the normal track and seek the punishment. And most of the time, just depending, but if we can filter them into our homeless court process, we do. And so then they get their court date for an assigned, a specific homeless court date. And we start the process of integrating them, setting them up with a caseworker, and starting really from scratch, usually.
So it sounds, thank you, but it sounds the way you're describing it, I'm sure it's much harder than this. That's what I was really getting at, is you find this person at whatever sidewalk you think he or she is at, and if he or she decides just to blow it off, that's what I was wondering, and then while all this is going on, he or she is staying somewhere, which I assume the officer kind of knows where this unique homeless person hangs out. Is that how that goes?
Or the housing authority, the housing coordinator knows them. I mean, keep in mind, this is a lot of the result of having to be creative because of all the changes in state law, because of the Martin versus Boise case that said you can't enforce camping on public property laws if there isn't a available bed. And so we're dealing, you know, we're complying with all the laws, but it's just it's a harder process, but it's a better process, because if you could just arrest somebody for camping in public, all you're doing is moving the problem somewhere else. And so it forced us to come up with a creative and better, you know, situation. Like a lot of time, this a bit of an aside, but like we not only talked to all the people who wanted us, we had meetings where half the council members wanted us, the council direct us to sue the faith-based organizations that were providing meals, because if society just allows it, the public won't accept it, and we didn't want to do that. And so we came up with an alternative. We not only met with all the people who had complained, so they knew we heard that we were hearing them. It wasn't just going unanswered. Joy Abakine is great. If we get an email on a Saturday night, it will be answered that night. So they know that we hear them. There are obstacles, there are the things we can't address, but we make certain the residents know. But the other thing we did, we met, Chief Kaufman and I went and met with the leaders of each of the 4 faith-based services and said, hey, if you did it slightly different, it wouldn't have the same impact on the community. And then you're not going to have the community that upset. And it's worked great. And Joy Abakine is now she wasn't appointed, and she didn't volunteer for it, and I didn't appoint her, but the neighbors and the First United Methodist Reverend Erica both asked her to be the mediator about any ongoing complaints. The only thing that they refuse is actually a good thing. We didn't want them to continue to both serve lunch at St. James on a Wednesday at noon, and in the evening at First United, because we're just habitually camping in the area. They had nowhere to go. They would sometimes commit crimes, but other times just make people fearful if the 1 or 2 that is acting out. They both felt they were grandfathered in against the other one. Like, we've been doing it longer. No, we've been doing it longer. Well, actually, it turns the best possible thing, because now with this homeless court system, we're going to have people in the area go to homeless court, as Anna said, then get a meal, and then go get their mental health treatment. And then they can go down for dinner. And I believe there's an NA meeting as well. And so actually having 2 meals is a benefit. So you never know.
So that First United Methodist Church, is that the one on the corner of Torrance Boulevard and Broadway?
Yeah.
Stairs there. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and
I know. I run by that church every.
So for example, we asked them and they agreed, because they saw that they didn't realize they were being blamed for things that they didn't do. So people would come up from the pier or whatever else and just hang out the pier. And Lieutenant Widman is old enough like me that he can remember how long ago. Sometimes people would hang out there because we had stay away orders from the pier. And it was just like, that was the 100-yard, dividing line. And so we worked with them, and Joy Abakine developed a form that allows the police, they authorize the police to enforce trespass laws when they're closed. And so we're able to enforce it. We couldn't do it if no one's there and it's private property. But now they've given the police the authorization, and now they're going to arrest, not unless the person makes them. They just, you're not allowed to stay here. It's private property, and they're just taking advantage of it. So we're trying to address each problem creatively, I guess.
Thank you very much. I'm taking a lot of the time. It was just interesting what you're doing. I think it's quite innovative. Putting a good balance of trying to the quality of life and sort of the law and order, and then my parting question is, the guy who, I guess I can't use the word he graduated in your example. Is he living somewhere now, or okay? So somebody found a place. Does that mean a person, when he does that, not only he's living somewhere, he or she would have some kind of income or that's a whole new different ballgame?
Yeah, that's part of the whole process. You can't live somewhere without having some kind of subsidy or income. So because he's an older person, was able to get a senior housing option and has income related to that as well. So he is
but not income such as got a job, job.
No.
You just come up with different ways to try and address it. That's one of the things we mean by housing ready. Try and get them to do all the steps they they need. We had a schizophrenic who got stabilized. He hadn't seen his family in, what was it, 10 years, Anna? He was from Texas. And once he was medicated, he wanted to reunite with his family. So we flew his mother out using our witness fees. Church, I think it was St. Andrews, agreed to fly him, to pay for him to fly back and reunite together. And Anna, you need two forms of ID. So the mother brought the birth certificate, and Anna worked with TSA that our booking photo could be the other form of ID. The only thing I would ask is, as far as I know, we're the only city attorney's office that is tasked with doing this, and I blame Christian for that. So if you can demand that Patrick do it as well, then I'll feel better. Misery loves company. So.
Okay, thank you, George. I'm gonna, Micah, you got a question, and then I'm gonna try to, unless there's any other questions, we're gonna try to wrap it up and move on to the rest of the agenda.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I turned my video off because my internet's acting up. I'm sorry about that. But something I just wanted to ask really quick. A lot of what I've heard so far is sort of within the context of this existing, oh, there's a warrant, or you've been cited, or you've been XYZ. I have contacts within the community. I don't know if they've done any of that. So my question, I guess, is just how would I approach them to get them channeled into these services without that context? Like if they don't have a citation or they don't have a warrant out for them, how can I get them into this sort of stuff, into these services?
So you're saying if they don't have a criminal case, are these services still available to them?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, yes, yeah, and like for example, Lila with Harbor Interfaith works with all individuals. They don't have to necessarily have court cases. It just so happens that a lot of the harder cases, a lot of the individuals who are at a higher acuity, they happen to have criminal cases. And so that's why there's this kind of oversight, and this kind of program is trying to address those particular individuals and hold their hand a little bit more. But as far as what's available to them, I mean, we still have all the caseworkers with Harbor Interfaith, PATH, and who in turn try to connect them to other providers like Exodus FSP, their homeless FSP, and things like that.
Yeah, like for example, PATH attends the meal services on a regular basis at St. James. And that's, I didn't go back because I think you've heard about this as a group before, to the original underpinnings, but a disproportionate, a few people, homeless people, were having a disproportionate impact on the community and causing a disproportionate reaction from the community. We started from a base of a very forward-thinking, very generous community. And there was starting to be a connection between, we have that and it's bringing in these problems, and that's not the case. But we wanted to, if you see one person walking down the street in the middle of a mental state, not wearing a shirt and screaming at no one, and he walks by 4 schools, in the morning, and that's a real example, then everyone that saw that when they were dropping their kindergartner off is going to think every homeless person is that way. And that's not the reality. And so this program was designed to address the hardest to treat, the ones having the biggest impact on the community. But that's why I was saying we're looking at expanding it to an aftercare. There are provisions where you don't need that, but if you can't get mental health care and you don't have a criminal case, then we would be happy to try and use them, try and offer them the CLEAR services, the CLEAR counseling services, and hopefully the eventual psychiatric services. But we were designed to treat the ones that were having that disproportionate impact, because I didn't want to see our city going backwards and becoming less generous and less forward thinking.
Right. So in other words, I should just be channeling them directly to Harbor Interfaith at that rate then.
Or PATH, yeah.
Or PATH, yeah, right. Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Micah. Are there any last questions? All right. Well, seeing none, thank you, Anna and Mike, for coming today and presenting. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We are moving on to the legislative update. Grace or Jackie, who's going to cover that?
Well, I do, we put it on the agenda because I know from time to time we do have representatives from some of the elected officials. I saw Janet Turner was on the call.
Yeah, I see Janet, and I saw Cody was, I don't know if he's still here, but Janet, do you have any updates from Congressman Liu's office?
So nothing on homelessness, but I do want you to know that the congressman is becoming quite concerned about the USPS issues, and he'll be becoming even more vocal about this issue. You may have heard that he's asked the FBI to look into whether there should be criminal charges brought against Mr. DeJoy, the Inspector General, the new postal inspector, rather, of the United States. And he has been a strong supporter of several pieces of legislation that would give USPS more money. In fact, a bill that was just passed a week ago Saturday in the House, but which is stalled in the Senate. It's the third bill that has come to the floor and passed to try to bring money to USPS. The congressman is very aware that there are systemic problems, and he wants to see them addressed. So nothing else on homelessness right now, although he does do a great deal on that issue, so maybe next month. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Janet. Cody, I don't know if you're still listening, or but anything from the Assembly Member's Office or just the legislature in general related to our topics?
Hi, Christian. Thank you. No, I'm sorry. I don't have any update from Representative Marisucci, but I think you will be very interested in this homeless court program. So I'll be briefing him on this, and we'll see if he wants to get a briefing personally, or take a visit, or something like that.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, Cody. Okay, then we will move on to Courtney for an update on PATH services.
All right. Hi, everybody. It's been a while since I've been on. We're here today to discuss what we've done in the past couple of months. And so you can go to the next slide. Our team makeup has changed. We said goodbye to 2 of our staff members. Well, one in July, we lost Brittany. Her husband is in the Guard, and so they got their orders, so she left. And then Damien moved on to Orange County to be an outreach coordinator. So we're in the process of hiring, and we had offered 2 people the positions, but they both declined for 2 separate reasons, and so the search continues. So we have kind of switched our focus, not so much outreach. We focus on more like street-based case management, more intensive. And so really spending more quality time with the participants, kind of really doing the hand-holding and stuff like that. So next slide, please. So LA Hops, of course, this is a way to get outreach requests. So feel free to go to lahop.org to request teams to come out to see someone. It's very helpful to put as much information in as you can. We do get LA Hop requests and we're not able to find or locate the person. So if you engage the person, try to ask for their information, like contact information, and if this is an area that like they primarily hang out, and if not, like the main area where they hang out, so we can really make sure we can make contact with them. Since July, we've received 25 LA Hops. Next slide, please. And so the fiscal year started July, so we started over since July. So 2 2 from Carson, 1 from West Carson, 15 from Torrance, 1 from El Segundo, 4 from Gardena, and 2 from Wilmington. And so we go out and try to look for those folks and try to connect them to services. So since July, we've engaged 49 people in District 4. We've helped 12 people into interim housing, and so 10 of those people were from the bridge homes, were referred into the bridge homes from for San Pedro and Wilmington, and then the other 2 were hotels. One was for an older woman in Redondo. We had to figure out what to kind of link her to, and we did. And another one was for a relocation that we did to have him get ready to fly out the next day. So, and the 3 permanent housing cases were people that were relocated actually from Redondo Beach that we met in the meal programs. They went, there was a couple, they went back to South Carolina, and a young man went back to Florida to be with their family. And District 2, we've engaged 18 folks since July, and we've done 15 CES assessments. What we're doing is going over to the Lawndale PRK, Project Room Key site on Fridays to assess the individuals that haven't been VI expedited to make sure they're linked to the appropriate resource. Next slide. So this is some pictures of us in the field. That's, I believe that the left corner is in Wilmington in the alley, or either Lomita McCoy, I can't tell. But that's Damien and Stephanie, who's our new staff member. And then in the middle is when Damien and Jasmine successfully helped people make it home at the Long Beach Airport. And then the other 3 pictures are the bridge homes in San Pedro and Wilmington. And then in the bottom right corner is Brittany, who we also said goodbye to in July along with John, but John is still here. So that's all we have. If anyone has any questions, we're excited to get involved, start next week with the Redondo Beach pilot program for homeless court. I used to do homeless court out in Santa Monica, and it is a very successful program. And so I really look forward to working with it and being involved with it in Redondo Beach. Anybody has any questions? I'll answer them.
Any questions for Courtney? All right, seeing none, thank you so much, Courtney. All right, let's move on to the updated CES activities from Harbor Interfaith. Brianna?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brianna Jydrum, and I'm the regional coordinator for the Adult Coordinated Entry System here in SPA 8. I have a few program updates. Lisa already introduced herself, but Lisa Gray is our new Beach Cities coordinator here in at Harbor Interfaith, serving and supervising our team in Redondo, Hermosa, and Manhattan Beach. So we welcome her this month. Exciting update for us. Harbor Interfaith Services has recently demobilized its Project Room Key site in Lomita. So our last date of operation was August 26th. So that was last Wednesday, a week ago Wednesday, we moved our final client out of the site and worked with the motel owner to get everything cleaned up. So we were really proud of that project, and we will work as the SPA 8 CES lead to assist other Project Room Key sites here in the South Bay as they begin to demobilize. And so we will work to ensure that no one is exited to the streets. We were happy to report that at Lomita, we didn't have anybody exit the streets. And so as we move forward, there will be an expansion of some permanent housing resources, and those aren't available yet, but when they do become available, we will be working with our PRK sites to ensure that those folks get connected. We also had our ABH sites start, our Bridge Home sites start since our last meeting, or right before our last meeting, or after our last meeting, at some point in July. And so we had the San Pedro and the Wilmington site open on the same day, July 8th. So we're going on close to 2 months of operation. Both have 100 beds and both serve the communities of San Pedro and Wilmington down here in the South Bay. And each have been working diligently to get their beds filled. So San Pedro is at 90 clients currently. We've definitely filled all the beds at one point, but we've had some movement. And so we're continuing to take referrals off of our backfill list. Our outreach teams have worked very diligently to ensure that not one person is missed. Even so far as to say, like, even if they don't say yes, let's still put them on the list for now, because who knows what might happen when a bed becomes available in the future. They may say yes at that time. So we are ensuring that we're getting folks into those sites. And then Wilmington, US Vets is the provider for the Wilmington ABH site. And our outreach coordination team has been assisting them in filling their beds as well. So kind of our role is air traffic controlling in the regional coordination world to ensure that these beds get filled and remain filled. And so just as a little side note, for those of you who may not know, Bridge Home sites are meant to serve in a specific geographic catchment area. And so when we are putting folks on backfill lists and doing observation homeless status forms and getting them into the shelter, there is specific geographic locations in which these clients must come from. So that is something we as outreach coordination and regional coordination are ensuring as they complete their intakes. Then the interim housing site, which we opened in March here in San Pedro in collaboration with Supervisor Han's office, has been full. We have currently 32 clients in shelter. We have capacity for 40. However, we were required to decompress that site per the COVID-19 guidelines to ensure satisfactory social distancing requirements. And so we'll remain at 32 until those COVID-19 restrictions are lifted. And let's see, what else do we have? And then we, as Courtney mentioned, we started a new fiscal year in July of 2020. So we have updated numbers for all of our departments. So while I oversee the adult department, I did get numbers from our youth coordinator and our family coordinator, and we are busy as ever. I think COVID has only sped things up and definitely has not slowed them down. And so, we've assessed as a SPA in the adult system 97 individuals, and this includes our subcontractors at St. Margaret's Center, MHA, and SHARE. We have housed 7 adult households in rapid rehousing from July 1st to current. We've had a 88% retention rate for those folks in the last year. And then, since July 1st, and then we've housed 3 chronically homeless individuals since the beginning of July, and we have very limited. We haven't had a ton of prevention referrals in any of our departments because there's been so many great programs available to folks who've been affected by COVID-19 throughout LA County, LA City, and other programs. So we've been working with them to take advantage of those programs, and using our program if all else fails, so that we can ensure that those funds remain available for folks who don't have access to those other funds. We also have, in the youth world, we've assessed 13 new youth in SPA 8. We've housed 9 youth in SPA 8 since July 1st with a 100% retention rate. And we've, again, had no requests for prevention. And then in the family system, we've assessed 52 families with minor children since the beginning of July. We've housed 29 families in rapid rehousing since the beginning of July with a 95% retention rate, and again, no prevention cases at this time. So a lot of work taking place. I'm really excited about all of it, and just staying on top of everything. So appreciate everybody's input and great presentation. We're from Redondo Beach, happy to be a part of that program, that pilot program.
Well, we're grateful for you guys. Brianna, there's a question from Ronald Williams. He just wants to know, where were the clients in the PRK site relocated to?
So some of them are permanently housed, and then some were transferred to other Project Room Key sites while they wait for their permanent housing. But everybody had a housing plan at exit, and the case management from Harbor Interfaith and other entities will follow them to their new locations. And most of them were able to maintain in SPA 8. We had a few clients who wanted to be placed outside of SPA 8, and so we were able to make that happen.
All right. Are there any other questions for Brianna? All right, seeing none, thank you so much. All right, update on COG Homeless Services Coordination, Jackie.
Okay.
Now you just muted yourself.
I know. I'm going to turn this over to Grace, and then I'll fill in anything that she forgets, if she forgets anything.
which happens sometimes. Because just got back from vacation. I'm still in vacation mode. So anyway, update, exciting, what I think is really, really exciting news is we are moving forward with some of the regional programs with the innovation funds. And the first one is our home sharing program. So we have a new name for it. It's called Home Share South Bay. We have developed a logo for it, and we are working with Silvernest on developing a landing page for our website. And we are anticipating a soft launch in early October. And so this is the home sharing program where it's a prevention strategy where we're really trying to match homeowners, and really we're trying to focus on older adults who may be house rich, cash poor, and then connecting them with other individuals who are in need of housing. So we're really excited about this program. Right now we're starting to make our kind of our list of how we're going to be marketing it and the different messaging that is going to go to the different organizations. So so stay tuned, because that's coming on board. And also as part of that, we developed an intern job description for a graduate student in gerontology or social work or something along those lines. And we've reached out to USC, to UCLA, Long Beach State, Cal State Dominguez, and we're working on finding a contact at Marymount College. But already we've received a resume and great interest from a student at Long Beach State who's really interested in homelessness and seniors. So we're going to see how that goes. So we're excited about that. And then also Lori Jacobs on our team, along with Nancy Wilcox, who's taking the lead on developing education modules basically for city staff on, well, kind of best practices and what is homelessness. And the goal is to help prepare our city staff on best practices and responding to inquiries regarding homelessness. And then we're also, Lori's taking that training and moving forward on developing some training and best practices for our businesses, because we want to make sure that our businesses are being well informed as well, like as far as what services are available, what programs are out there, and also how to interact with individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So that is what I have from my end. What did I forget, Jackie?
Well, I wanted to talk about some things that we've done at the COG that are not specifically homeless, but I thought I should give a general COG report. And I wanted to start off by saying that LA County has a new program called LA versus Hate. The COG has officially joined that program. It's actually run by a nonprofit agency, but the purpose of LA versus Hate is to create a community-centered campaign to encourage all residents of LA County to unite against and report and resist hate. It always happens to me. The LA versus Hate website, if you go to lavshate.org, there are resources that will help you with what the campaign is about. But essentially, the idea is to, if you witness or are part of a hate crime or hate incident, you call 211 and report that. It is not affiliated with law enforcement, and you can report that incident safely and anonymously. The idea of it is that they don't share anything with law enforcement. They do have case managers that then follow up and look at the complaint and try to track it. The county wants to do this so that they can actually start looking at where some of maybe the problem areas are and the hotspots. Interestingly enough, from January, or depressing, from January to July, there were 256 calls received, and that were acts of hate. 31 were actually hate crimes. Of the calls received, 26 involved Blacks, 17% involved Asian Pacific Islanders, 15% Mexican, 13% gay men, 8% whites, and 5% Jewish. And I'm sure there's more breakdown. So what we're doing with that, and I don't have it with me today, is the local artists are doing signs for people. If you go to LA versus Hate website, you'll see all these signs that you can get custom made. And we're having a sign that says South Bay versus Hate that will go into our newsletters and into our other publications, and so that we can promote this project. And you might want to consider signing on too. I wanted to let you know that as of August 31st, our fiber network, our South Bay fiber network, is up and running. We're very, very excited about it, and we're going to be working on now how to give our cities the opportunity to make the extra bandwidth that they now have into something that allows them to serve their communities more efficiently and effectively. So that's our next step. Our senior services working group is meeting on September 22nd, and they're going to hear an overview about the Department of Aging, a lot of tie-in. At the senior services working group, we always have a report on homelessness because it's an important issue for them. And then I just want to commend our board of directors who have had 2 special board meetings on the role of public safety for elected officials. And I think that it's very forward thinking of them, and they've really worked really hard to figure out the kinds of things they should be doing. What's their role in this new paradigm that we're living in? So those are the things I wanted to report. Thank you, Christian.
All right, thank you, Jackie. Next steps and follow-up actions, Grace, anything of note? You're muted.
I muted myself again. No, I think we're okay.
Okay. Well, perfect. Well, then, everyone, thank you so much again for spending a couple hours of your day with us here. We will adjourn until November 4th, 2020. So in the meantime, stay safe, and we will see you in a couple months. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.